Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I'm going to speak to you as the board chair of AeroX, which is a nonprofit industry association geared toward facilitating the advanced air mobility industry, and also as co-founder and general partner of AeroX Ventures Fund, which is a for-profit group. These have a very closely aligned shared mission, but they're very separate organizations, so I'll touch on each one. Maybe the way to think about what we're trying to do in a nutshell is to change the license plates in North Carolina. If you've been here for any length of time, you probably know our tagline at North Carolina license plates is first in flight. And we're not sure that makes the most sense. And it's not because I'm some wacko from Ohio or anything like that. I know that North Carolina truly is first in flight. I'm an aviation guy. I spent my career in commercial aerospace. I'm a pilot, I own an aircraft. So clearly I'm excited about that, but it does seem to me to breed complacency. And what we're trying to suggest at AeroX that we want to celebrate our legacy of being first in flight, but also recognize that more than that, we want to be next in flight. And that in fact is our tagline. Next in flight recognizes the fact that this industry, the aerospace and defense industry, is about to go through its most transformative set of changes since the Wright brothers. Bigger than the propeller, bigger than the jet, bigger than the twin jet, bigger than the composites that came in with the 787 or the A350. And that's advanced air mobility, which simply is the use of transformative airborne technology to move people, parts, things, packages, or to provide airborne lift for sophisticated data capture, image gathering, and artificial intelligence systems. So it covers a lot of things. It's everything from being able to take an eVTOL, an electrically powered aircraft from Midtown Manhattan to JFK instead of an hour-and-a-half traffic-ridden Uber ride, to commercial drones that fly e-commerce packages from Amazon or medical supplies for Novant Health or for Wake Forest Baptist. So it's a whole slew of opportunities here. The interesting thing and why we're doing this is we want to position our region as the recognized leader, as the home for this. This is a nascent industry, and so there are considerable first mover advantages for those that create the proper ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of many things. We have a real right to win for this space, which is exciting to me. We have in Smith Reynolds Airport here an underutilized asset that has all of the capabilities of Raleigh-Durham, but with none of the commercial air traffic. So it becomes a perfect solution for any kind of AAM company that wants to develop, test, or prove out their technology. That airport's also located within 2 or 3 miles of a downtown area that is very supportive of entrepreneurs, as we see here today with Flywheel and Winston Starts and other capabilities here. We have a culture in this area that supports innovation. And we have something importantly, which is paying customers. So we have 2 health systems in town here, Novant and Wake Forest Baptist, that are currently paying money to fly commercial drones to move vaccines, medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, cancer therapies from one place to another within their facilities. And we have other paying customers that I'll talk about more in a minute. Why is now the time? We're finally at the point where some of the key enabling technologies have matured and scaled to the point that we can really think about bringing this industry to life. Battery technology has evolved to the point where the weight to power ratio is quadrupled, which means you can now power aircraft for sufficient flight distances at a decent speed with a decent payload. The advance of the 787 A350s have really developed a composites capability in this country that has scaled and has had reduced costs. And then, as you all can see from every other industry, computing capacity has evolved to the point where you can think about controlling the hundreds of thousands of commands per second that it takes to control an autonomous aircraft. A couple of numbers here. The advanced air mobility market is about $20 billion today. Morgan Stanley projects that will go to $1.5 trillion by 2040. So that's about a 30% CAGR. If I put that in perspective, the whole A&D, aircraft and aerospace and defense industry today is $950 billion. So that 20 billion is a tiny sliver of a $950 billion market. That tiny sliver will grow to 50% larger than the entire aerospace and defense business is today. So that's a business we do not want to miss out on. We need to be the early home for these technologies. In every one of these cases I can think of, the benefits are the unmanned, uncrewed flights are cheaper, faster, smarter, cleaner, and safer. And I cannot think of any exceptions to that. It's in virtually every case. The way we're attacking this is through what we call a triple threat strategy. One is through creating the industry association that I mentioned, the nonprofit. That's called AeroX. We have a number of partners, including our Sheriff's Department, who's doing an interesting pilot in town here, our two health systems, UPS Flight Forward, which is a standalone unit of UPS focused 100% on commercial drones, and many other partners. We've received $5 million from the state to position Forsyth County as the pilot and the home in North Carolina to prove out these technologies. And we're using that money to create what's called our Atlas Instrumented Flight Corridor. Atlas is aircraft, I always forget the T, aircraft traffic low altitude surveillance, there we go. And that's a low-level ground radar system and weather sensing system that we're putting in place right now. We're hiring Raytheon and Thales to build this out for us. And this will provide comfort for the FAA that all of the testing that we want to do with commercial drones and eVTOLs will get the necessary flight approvals they need and safety benefits. The third is we recognize that these companies, a lot of the technology is going to come from smaller companies that you've never heard of, emerging tech companies, and they need to have financing. And so thus the reason for our focus on creating a venture fund that, along with other funds and sources of capital in this area, can be put to play in this industry. A little bit on Project Atlas. This is the instrumented flight corridor that we're building out right now here in Winston and Forsyth County. The benefits are to allow Novant Health and Wake Forest Baptist to scale out what they're doing now. They would like to connect their health systems over longer distances. Right now, cancer, we take a good example would be Wake Forest. A lot of people don't know that they are transporting bespoke, highly customized cancer infusion therapies from where they're mixed at downtown at the hospital, at Baptist Hospital, and flying them to remote cancer clinics. The goal is to bring patient care closer to the patient. These therapies have a shelf life of 1 hour. They have to be refrigerated, so there's no way to do that with a ground courier or other mode of transportation. So these are being flown by UPS drones to various cancer clinics. What Atlas will allow is for this to be scaled over much longer distances without the need for so many visual observers and pilots, which allows the technology to scale and become more financially viable. Public safety, we're going to be one of the first in the nations to create a drone as a first response program. We're setting this up in Clemens. That's going to be run by our Forsyth County Sheriff's Department, and starting at the end of this year, they will have a process where drones will be the first response. They'll be automatically connected to the 911 system. So when a 911 call comes in Clemens, the drone will be the first on the scene, eye in the sky, that will give situational awareness to the responding officers. And we've seen in other areas, such as San Diego, that this really enables de-escalation. And so they want to respond with the appropriate use of force, and to the extent that they can understand the situation on the ground, that really helps. So we'll be piloting that here in Winston-Salem. And then we're talking with Duke Energy and a number of others, Crown Castle, cell phone operators and stuff, about remote surveillance of infrastructure. And if you think about when we release an RFP for the Sheriff's Office to say we want to do a drone, we want to solicit drone interest for drones as a first response, we get access to some amazing technology. There's software companies that connect to 911. There's navigation and situational awareness sensors for getting the drone to the right location. It's communication suppliers, it's drone suppliers. it's a number of different software suppliers. So this gives us access to a lot of technology here. Briefly on the venture fund, we're raising a $25 to $50 million fund. We've raised 11 million of it so far. We're optimistic. We're getting a lot of support for this. We're focused on very early stage ventures in this space, any part of the AAM space, looking at making investments of anywhere from $500,000 to $1.5 million with some dry powder for follow-ons. So this is not control investments, this is venture investment, and we're capturing our domain expertise from the GPs and also a pretty impressive, I would say, strategic advisory group. And this is a quick look at some of the market segments that we're looking at. I mentioned the $1.5 trillion market. That will be about $90 billion by 2030. And the defense is about half of that market right now. That's where we're focused just right now, this month. The next market that will sort of quickly dwarf that is, it says commercial, I would call it enterprise. This is an example of what you're going to see with the next speaker is, this is basically about using drones as surveillance or image capture or lift for information systems. What you're providing in this segment is data. And what we like about this segment is that it doesn't have very difficult FAA restrictions. The last segment is the biggest one over time, and that's the logistics segment. This is one right now that we are not investing in, even though it's very large, because of the very difficult regulatory environment. Instead, this is where we're putting our $5 million of state funding and our $300,000 of county funding into lobbying and instrumented test corridors to influence the FAA and to get the regulatory improvements that we need. So I'd like to now introduce our next speaker, Demarius Simmons. Demarius's company, Southern Drone, is in this commercial or enterprise space. And what we like about this space is that there's no obstacle, there's no regulatory black hole associated with proving out his technology. He's providing superior information to his clients that can only be delivered efficiently and quickly by drone. And one of the problems in this industry is that the technology has advanced, but the regulatory environment has not kept pace. That is not true in this segment. So that's one of the things that we really like about Southern Drone is they can prove and do their thing without having undue problems from the regulatory authorities.